Hey everybody, it's Dallas Sear coming to you live from the Mount Madonna Center, just outside of Northern California, outside of Santa Cruz, California. Here at the Karma Yoga Retreat and Community Center. As you can see, just a beautiful view in front of me. This is what I'm looking at here from my swing. What do I mean by a swing? See it up there, attached to the swing there. This is the tree I'm hanging out under. One of my favorite spots to hang out under while I've been here. Good place to just sit and think. Huge old oak tree, just amazing. And anyway, today, what I was going to share with you is a little bit of history, real quick, about Babaji or Baba Hari Das, who I mentioned before. He's the gentleman who has made all this possible, the guru and teacher that created all of this, the center, and does all the teaching here. 87 years old, hasn't spoken since 1956. And let me turn the camera here a little bit. And so basically, the volume probably changed a little bit on you, but what I was going to talk to you about is today, each week we get a little bit of history about the teachings, Karma Yoga, the center itself, and today we learned about Baba Hari Das, or Babaji as they call him. And basically, what we learned is at the age of 7, this young man comes to his mother and he explains that he feels like he's in a box. He's feeling trapped. And he keeps saying it over and over, keeps thinking it over and over. And eventually he gets to a point where he decides that he has to get out of the box. And so he's talking to his mom about this, and he asks her, "What's outside the box?" And I just coming from a corporate background, that has a whole different meaning, but so, or maybe not, but what's outside the box, he asked her. And she couldn't tell him. She answered him by saying, I actually can't tell that to you. I can't tell you what's outside that box for you. And so he decided at the age of 7, he's one of 3 children, decided at the age of 7 that he had to leave home. So he tells this to his mom, and his mom says, if I could tell you what was outside that box, then I'd be able to keep you here. Since I can't, I'm going to let you go. This is 1920, just to put this in perspective, in India. And so she lets him leave at the age of 7 and asks him one favor, that if he leaves, he always stays within range where she can call upon him if need be. So he goes to a little area just outside of the Ganges River in India where a lot of the saints would go. And saints in India, basically anybody who gives their entire life to the pursuit of a higher calling, to God, to enlightenment. And so he goes down to this place in the Ganges River to look for maybe a guru and to look for what's outside the box. And he ends up living out there. He does find his master, who he only has a couple of moments with, only a couple times throughout his life. So throughout this process, he decides he's going to take vows to become a monk, a certain type of monk. And some of the vows include only having 3 articles of clothing. So he's pretty much just, underwear, a type of wrap around his lower half, and a blanket for his upper half if need be. Silence, a vow of silence. Wouldn't comb his hair, doesn't comb his hair or cut his hair. And all of these vows need to be taken over a 12-year period, as well as only eating 1 meal a day. After 12 years of this, and he does a lot of these at once, obviously, eating 1 meal a day, only having 3 articles of clothing, taking the vow of silence. All this was done at once, and there's other vows as well. So in addition to this, he's literally living physically in a box, and people would come to visit him and wonder what he was doing and why. And occasionally he would pop his head up out of the box and then go back in to meditate. And the idea is to separate yourself from, I guess, you or your thought of who you are, because it's not really important. What's really important is your spirit and your connection with the divine, which is why combing your hair is not important or your article of clothing is not important. So just a very interesting process. Now, after 12 years of eating one meal a day, he decided to live even more. I think it's 2 years where he lived purely on goat's milk. So quite an amazing individual. And the more that I learned about his story, when I first came here, I got to be honest, I would see him sitting there and people sitting around him talking to him, and I wasn't that interested in connecting. I wasn't that curious, wasn't that impressed. When I would hear him answer things, it was often like a one or three word answer to certain questions. And I guess I just didn't get it until I heard the story in the background. So as time goes on, he gets older. He's in his young 20s, and he starts to join the freedom fighters movement with Gandhi. Now, at this time, Gandhi was a very old man. The movement had already been going on for some time. So he joins the movement. No particular connection with Gandhi specifically, but he joins the movement. He learns martial arts as well as a number of other things. And somebody visiting India says, "You really need to come back to America and to Canada." Now, part of his vow, believe it or not, was to never ask to be included in anything, but he could not say no when someone asked him. So very interestingly enough, someone asked, he goes to America. This was in 1971, and at the time, very early on, by 72, he starts to create a small following. And the following is learning from him. He's teaching them. By this time, he's not speaking at all. He's taken a full vow of silence. It's past the 12 years, but he's decided that that particular vow he's going to continue. He's got more than 3 articles of clothing. He decides to break his hair at a certain point where you can't cut your hair, but he's allowed to break it after the 20-year period. So it's torn and broken to a manageable level. No more dreadlocks down to his ankles. Long story short, um, at one point, the individuals that were following him realized that there was just, they're meeting at this center, meeting at this person's house, and they needed a place to be, to gather. And so they decided to start looking for property. While looking for property, this is a very long process. And after like a year, he suggests that everyone following him write a letter to everyone they know. And this kind of mirrored the law of attraction to me. So everyone following him writes a letter to everyone they know, including every realtor in the area. And long story short, in the letter they write a list of everything they're looking for. A lot of the responses that they got, because it was such a crazy list, they could only afford X amount of dollars, but they needed this type of space, they needed this type of view, they needed this much land, they just all these wants that they had, but a very small budget. So a lot of individuals are like, yeah, good luck with that. Some of the letters that they got back included only in heaven. When you find it, let me know, and other things like that. So finally, somebody who was a forest ranger and realtor was taking care of a piece of property for an estate. A certain couple had passed away. 7 children who weren't living anywhere in the area had a trustee who was taking care of the property, and that trustee was a realtor and a forest ranger who got one of these letters and said, "I know of the perfect place." So thus they discovered 350 perfect acres for what they were looking for. And these 20-something-year-olds, along with an Indian guru who was not talking, had to convince all of these people who were in charge of permits, 7 children who knew nothing about these individuals, the realtor. They had to convince these people that they would create a community, retreat, yoga center that was worthwhile, as well as take care of the property, as well as take care of it in an environmental sense that was required, and so forth and so on. For 2 years, they went through this process, trying to prove themselves, not really, knowing what to do, just kind of discovering the path as they go through it. And 30 years later, here we are. So just an amazing human being, amazing story, and human beings around him. And just wanted to share that. So there'll be some pictures on Facebook, my fan page. There's going to be some pictures